It's May, which is freaking me out, Jen.
May is a good time for a school teacher.
Yeah, you're like in the home stretch.
I'm in the final throes of a school year.
Teacher Appreciation Week this week. Did you get something nice?
Yeah, we like our Parents Association does like little gifts, like, you know, and some of them are cute. Like one day it was like a cookie for everybody, and today they had like little notebooks, and everybody was really excited because everybody loves a little notebook.
Who doesn't love a notebook?
Exactly.
Nerds love a notebook.
Well, and those are my people. So.
And look, teachers are nerds, and we love them for it.
So are we going to talk about your book tour, Sarah?
Oh, God. Yeah, my book is out in less than 2 months, which feels impossible because it feels like I wrote this book 12 million years ago. These summer storms, you guys, I'm going to be the worst. I have to talk about it all the time now, and it's so annoying. I know, but I have a book coming out, and there's some cool stuff, though. I announced a bunch of cool stuff this week.
Exactly. Well, I want you to talk about the ripped bodice cover edition.
Okay, so this is really cute, and it actually ties into collections. So there's that, too. So first and foremost, podcast. Welcome to Fated Mates, everyone. This is our podcast. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
And I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor.
And we are revamping our website. Everybody knows this. We're rethinking just like how we can best be your discoverability buddy, which is a name that Kim Only Reads Romance gave us. She's out there listening. Kim, thanks for listening, and thanks for calling us Discoverability Buddies, because that is the greatest.
It's the best, yes.
Put it on my tombstone. And so basically the premise, the idea that Eric actually had was, what if we made a place on our website where real people who are not AI and not beholden to an algorithm can recommend books based on a microtrope. So we've talked about some of them in the past. You can go to fatedmates.net and just click on collections. You can go see all the ones that have been created already, although we have a backlog already of like people who've sent us collections, and we're trying to get them all up online. But some of them are authors, some of them are friends of, listeners, some are friends of us in real life. The Kim Only Reads Romance, because she named us Discoverability Buddies. We asked her if she'd like to do a collection, and she chose Secret Tattoos.
It's
which
amazing.
Is one of anybody who's read a Sarah McLean novel knows this. I love a secret tattoo that has like a secret mening.
Yes,
only between like the two people. So this collection has a bunch of books I haven't read too.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you love that Joanna Wild Reaper's Legacy book a lot.
Listen, I've told you about that book. That's the one with the fingerprints.
Incredible.
It is, everybody.
We made a lot of people angry last week with third act breakups, but like fingerprint tattoos go right up there on that shelf, that third act breakup shelf. But there are books from Serena Ackroyd. I haven't read this one, Steele. I haven't read Victoria Wilder's Hide and Peak. There's a Penny Reed on here. We all love her. So, and there is a Tara DeWitt on here called Funny Feelings, and the art on Funny Feelings is done by a place called Ink and Laurel, an artist named Ink and Laurel. And she has done a special edition romance cover for these summer storms, which is so fun.
It's really fun.
And like so pretty and romantic. And it's like the scene following Jen's favorite scene in the book, which you'll hear all about when we do our storms episode.
Yes.
But it's so great because she took a scene right out of these summer storms and like made it real and romancy. And there's like gravity defying hair and, a handsome man who also has a tattoo, though it is not a secret tattoo. It does not have a special meaning to them both. And like there, you can see the sort of big Gothic house on the hill and the private island, and it just feels really stormy and lovely. And one of the cool things about storms that I have been sort of saying to everybody is, while I personally, Sarah McLean, who reads romance novels and writes romance novels, would not put this into genre romance, there is a big fat romance that runs right through the center of this book. It's just not the A plot. And you all know, Fated Mates listeners know, like, I am a purist, and it's important to me to not take you down a road that you as romance readers would consider that you had been taken down a road on. But I think you'll be satisfied by this romance that runs right through the center of the book. And if you pre-order the book from the Rip Bodice in Brooklyn, I will sign it for you, and it will come with this second dust jacket because it's a hardcover. So you'll get the original dust jacket, and then you'll get the romancy one, and you can pick your vibe. Read the book and decide which cover it should have. And then tell me, send me a picture. Take a picture. Put it on the internet, tag me, let me know which cover you think it should have had from the jump. But it's very cool. I think
that's such a fun, like, bonus extra for the Rip Bodice edition. I love it.
Listen, I'm on the record on this podcast for saying, like, don't buy multiple editions of a book just to get the, like, different sprayed edges. But in this case, you don't have to. You just buy the one copy and you get both, which is how it should be. So that's happening. You can do that at the Rip Bodice. There are links in show notes right now that you can go to. It's also on all of my, social media and on the website, my website at sarahmaclean.net. But also, and more importantly,
Fated Mates Live.
Fated Mates Live, the Summer Storms edition, which, just means that you're going to get a copy of Storms with your ticket to Fated Mates Live, a gift with purchase, if you will.
There you go.
We are the gift you get with purchase.
Well, and Kate.
And Kate. And we're doing it with Kate Claiborne, who everybody knows we love, love, love. We're going to St. Louis to Novel Neighbor, which is like a legendary store. I cannot wait to check it out.
I can't wait to go there.
Listen, Novel Neighbor has said that they would like to do a meetup for everybody before Fated Mates Live. So everybody will go to the store and like hang and like shop and talk about books together. And then like
every Uber in St. Louis will come to the store and take you to the other place.
A marauding band of Fated Mates listeners just taking over the streets in St. Louis.
Magnificent Firebirds on the move.
Yeah, to come to Fated Mates Live, which is my release night. It's July 8th,
that's so fun.
Which is so exciting. And we'll get to hang out and take photos. We're going to hire a photographer like we did last time so that we have lots of pictures of all of you laughing in the audience. We're going to do our best to make it as fun as possible. So if you are in the Midwest, and I say this because as a New Englander, this blows my mind, but Midwesterners travel. And so if you are in the Midwest and free on July 8th, come hang out with us. Tickets, there are still tickets available, though they are selling quite quickly.
Yeah, they are.
So head to fatedmates.net/live, and it'll take you to all the information on the live event. And then my full book tour, which is in 8 cities around the country. Come see me. Jen is going to be with me for at least 2, maybe 3 of the events. You'll be able to meet Jen. I'll have Fated Mates stickers. We'll have a great time.
It's going to be so fun. One of my favorite really funny things in the Discord is people are talking about like maybe bringing like, their moms and their aunts and their sisters and all this fun stuff. And someone was like, should I bring their baby? And someone else said, Magnificent Fire Baby.
I know.
And I was like, I'm so delighted by this.
I love it. Somebody said, I don't know if it was the same person or a different person, but she was like, I can't make it to Fated Mates Live because I'm giving birth. Like, okay, that's allowed. And then she was like, but I'm definitely going to drag my postpartum ass to Decatur for your... And I was like, wait, what? You live in Georgia? What? And then I was like, bring that baby. I will hold that baby. I'm good at holding babies and talking.
I'm not good at holding babies, but I do like all of you. So if you needed me, if you were in a jam and you're like, somebody's got to hold this baby, I would be like, I guess I can do that for you.
Bring your babies. I will hold your baby. One time I did an event when my daughter was incredibly, incredibly young, and Susan Elizabeth Phillips held her the entire time.
Oh, that's so nice.
Just like injecting her with third act breakup magic.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I was like, Right, like dipping her in the river Styx, but it's the river romance.
Exactly. So I'm paying it forward. Bring your baby to me, and I will hold her and talk about, all things inappropriate. But they'll be little, so they won't know.
It'll be perfect. It'll be perfect.
Anyway, but you're coming up on the end of school, so we decided to do what we refer to as an easy one.
Yeah, that just means, well, usually it means the following. Depending on who is more in a jam, the one person is kind of takes point and does a lot of research, and the other person just rolls in, as I said earlier in a text message.
Just pure vibes.
Yeah, I've got pure vibes blowing through my sails, and so we'll just see what I say. And this week's topic, though, is one that a couple of weeks ago we were just chatting, and Sarah said on the shelf, and then was like, that would be a really good topic. And I was like, it would be a really good topic.
It's so weird to me that we've never done it.
Yeah, it is. So on the shelf is essentially, so this is going to be a historical heavy episode, because it really specifically means someone who is off of the dance floor of the marriage mart, and just sort of has aged out of the sort of process of looking for a husband. And back in the day that was meant you were 22 and a half, but fine. But I think the thing that I was also thinking about that would be really fun for us to talk about is the difference between a wallflower and a spinster. And it was really interesting when I was doing a little bit of light research, vibes research. I sort of Googled I think wallflower romance books or whatever. And a list that came up was shy heroines. And I was like, oh, I don't necessarily think that that's what that means. And then I was like, maybe we should talk about some of the varietals that you experience when essentially you have a heroine that for whatever reason feels marriage is no longer an option for her. And I think even a question is, does regardless of whether or not she wants it to be, right?
I think there are two different flavors, right? It's Gatorade red and Gatorade blue.
Well done, Sarah.
I don't know.
What an illuminating comparison.
Shut up, Jen. I did the research this week.
It's true. She did. I'm just here to shit talk, apparently, and, be
But I will say that I did pause it to Louisa Darling, author of Where Have All the Scoundrels Gone? Our current favorite historical.
Yes.
What does Spinster look like in contemporary?
Yeah, I have some thoughts about this.
And her response was so perfect that I have to share it here, which is there was kind of a lot. This was obviously over text because nobody talks to anybody by
why would you do that
by phone or anything anymore. And she sent me the TikTok of the French guy that was recently passed around, and the title of it is "Dating a Girl Who Used to Be Alone Can Be Very Hard."
Oh yeah, that is the most brilliant TikTok I've ever seen. Yeah.
Immediately, you guys pause, go to show notes, and watch this, and just have a delightful moment. And what Louisa described this as is determinedly single. And this TikTok is hilarious because basically it's you think you're better than her laying on the couch drinking wine and watching Gilmore Girls.
Right. Good luck to you, sir. Right.
Exactly.
He's you got to know your place with these ones. They're rough. Right.
And then I was like, can you think of an example? And she was like, from my real life, yes, but I can't think of an example in text. And so I think it's interesting because I actually think I actually think there probably are a handful of heroines in romance right now who are that.
Yeah.
But I actually don't think there are. And then I think in presents, say, or in a very particular kind of contemporary where there is a sort of demand for marriage, you're too old, but now you have to, or, you've never been able to, but now you have to. But on the shelf is a particularly historical concept.
Susan Elizabeth Phillips in Heaven, Texas, Gracie is like on the shelf. But part of that is because of like her job, right? She works she like works with senior citizens, and she just feels like she can't figure out how to like, she wears like clothes she hates, and, and so she just really feels like because of like the people who raised her and her job, she doesn't know how to meet young people her age. And so she takes this like really dramatic, like, I'm going to go work for a movie because certainly that will, kind of put me in a different like atmosphere, right? But I mean, she does feel that like very strongly, but it is, I would say, like, and I think the other thing you see, but it's not on the shelf, is like, and it's the same in historical, like the 30-year-old, I'm reaching a milestone.
Pesky virginity.
I've got a milestone birthday. Right, exactly. I've got a milestone birthday, and what am I going to do? Yeah. This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Susan Lee, author of The Romance Rivalry.
Jen, this is so cute. Listen,
I love a YA
this is
romance.
The perfect YA romance for anybody looking for something for the young romance lover in your life. Irene Park loves romance novels, which makes us love Irene Park.
Correct.
So much so that she has made a career of them as an online book reviewer, and she has a massive following. But the reality is that like in high school, Irene's love life has been kind of a mess, but she is about to have a fresh start. She is starting freshman year of college, and she has set her sights on finding true love using primary source material, romance novels.
So smart,
Problem
Irene.
is, so
totally
she's
gonna work.
decided she's going to take all the tropes from romance novels and she is going to use them methodically, scientifically to find herself the perfect romance. Enter Aiden, Irene's online book review rival, her biggest nemesis. And when Aiden kind of clocks what Irene is up to, he challenges her to a little competition. They're both going to take tropes and try to find love, and whoever gets there first wins, except the competition is all shenanigans, and that's going to be the best part about this book. And then ultimately, it takes an unexpected turn into, you guessed it, fake dating. And these two, who are rivals, they hate each other, right? I don't think they do. I don't think they do. I think they are going to fall hard for each other, and it's going to be a great ride.
I'm about to buy a bunch of these for the romance girlies in my classroom.
I'm going to drop one in the bookshelf 2 doors down from my office right now.
All right, everybody. If you would like to check out the Romance Rivalry for the young romance reader in your life, it is available in print, ebook, and audio. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Susan Lee for sponsoring this week's episode.
We're in a trio of episodes. We're like somewhere, they're not going to be back to back, obviously. A couple episodes ago, we did Ruination. And now we're doing On the Shelf, which is different than Ruination. And there is a third episode that obviously, that then like will be the kind of holy trinity of what happens to heroines in historicals. And that is Pesky Virginity. And so I think like, interestingly, like I separated out the virginity ones, the like, what I mean, we'll talk about what that means, but like I separated out the ones that were like, I'm 30 years old and I want to like have an adventure.
Right.
Because I was like, that's a different vibe than I have been. I feel like for On the Shelf, you have to have been set there by society.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like On the Shelf is like, I want to climb down and I can't or don't know how, right? Like,
yeah, like I'm wearing a lace cap. I'm sitting next to the old ladies against the wall. And like, that's just where I am.
Yes, right? Exactly. The lace cap. Sorry, I don't, yes.
I mean, it's interesting because it does feel like, you know, again, I think 9 Rules comes up a lot when you come to when you talk about spinsters, because she is such a spinster. And she sort of falls into multiple categories here. But I do think like she has been set upon the shelf. She has a moment early in the book where she overhears her brother like basically saying like she'll be a great aunt Like, and that'll be that. She hears her future brother-in-law say that.
Well, and it's like, she can live with us. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, she'll be fine. We have plenty of money. She can live with us. She can be a great aunt. And she's like, hang on a second, I'm 27. And if I'm going to be a great, like, and if I were a man, no one would be saying that to me.
Correct.
And so, like, I obviously, listen, that was my first romance. I wrote it, like, I packed that book full of things that I loved. And so I love a spinster. I love them. And, like, there's a reason why, for me, like, Lisa Kleypas is, like, there is Lisa Kleypas supremacy, and the Lisa Kleypas supremacy that I endorse is old school Lisa Kleypas, because, like, that's where all the spinsters live.
Right. I mean, the Wallflowers is a series, right? I mean, like, it was built into the literal system of it. So, yeah. Well, and that's it. I guess I will say, so I found myself thinking, like, right, On the Shelf is about being put there. Right. Whereas, like, Wallflower, I guess I could see as being more like, I'm shy and I just fade into the background. Right. And Spinster, I think in some ways felt a little like, I've definitely read historical romances where, like, she's reclaiming that. Right. Like, in a way, like, right. Like, I might not want anything to do with this. I have my great life being the spinster or whatever, right? So On the Shelf, though, is like, this isn't what I wanted. It's not the life I thought I would have. And I don't know that I would say I can't promise I'm not going to talk about Wallflowers or Spinsters, but I do think
there is a sort of,
yeah, but it does feel like
it overlaps.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think Spinster's this interesting word, right? Because, like, it means anybody who is on any unmarried woman,
right?
Like, my mother's marriage certificate says her name, and then underneath it says spinster.
Shut up.
Yeah. And that's wild to me, right? Like, whoa. My mother married my father when she was, like, I don't know, 26. Like,
how dare. Wow.
And I mean, granted, my parents, you know, my parents were married in Bristol, England. So, like, spinster is the word that it's a very English word. But I also think, like, so to your point, though, it feels like in historicals, spinster, like, it starts to edge into Wallflower. Interestingly, when we were young, not Wallflower, into On the Shelf, when we were young, it was like 24, 25 were on the shelf.
Right.
Now we're all like, I have written a couple of characters who are on the shelf, and they're all in their upper 20s.
Yeah, right. Older,
like, edging 30. And that's because we write the book for the time we live in. And if I wrote, like, 24 is a Tessa Bailey heroine. Come on now.
Right. Exactly.
But I will say, like, I'm not going to talk too much about her, but I also think, like, it's kind of impossible to have this conversation without talking about Mary Balogh. And that's because Mary wrote, I mean, I would think of the 40 however many books Mary has written, over half of them are spinster books, are, like, on the shelf, older heroines who have lived a life. And I think that this is also a piece of On the Shelf, like, this kind of the dichotomy or the conflict between having been around long enough that you have seen the way the world works, right? These are not ingenues on the shelf. And also often, like, innocent, and I, like, quote innocent, like, I mean, like, sexually inexperienced. And so that sort of push-pull between, like, knowing what's behind the door and not ever having been able to open the door is the challenge, I think, in On the Shelf. Because you're also, like, prized in a way. Like, there's always, like, a older character, like some character in these books who's like, well, if you come down off the shelf and, like, take the world by, you know, its horns, then you could be ruined. And it's like, well, what?
And I that to me does feel like one of the key parts of On the Shelf is like that this heroine is like almost like perseverates on what they feel were like the missed opportunities, right? Like there they are on the shelf, and what else are you going to do there but think? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like these are women who often are like, why did I say no? Or why I could have, you know, I don't know, like look back on some of the choices potentially that they did have as younger women or in their seasons, or like, why did it take me so long to get over being so shy or whatever it is. Right. And so I do think that tends to be kind of interesting to me because I think regret is a really interesting character trait. I think it's interesting to see what people regret in their lives.
I also think there's something going on here with like generationally in romance. Like I think On the Shelf is becoming, I think obviously it's used as a touchstone in historicals a lot. Like there's this sort of sense of like, well, if you don't get married before whenever, you'll be on the shelf, right? Like you're climbing up onto the shelf or whatever the thing is, right? But I do think like in 2025, we are seeing fewer of these books because the story doesn't resonate in a contemporary world in the same way. And that's good, right? Like there is a real sense that I think readers are tending to be more interested in characters who are expansive. And so I do think like this is the realm of very particular kind of historical.
I mean, I feel like back in the day, every book was this.
Better get married before you get old.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting because when I was thinking about the books, and I really am, everybody, I'm going to try really hard to talk about books that we have not spoken about. And although there are certainly some names on this list that we have spoken about. But, you know, when you think about, we're not going to get deep into it because we did a deep dive, but like The Proposition is a perfect example. Right. Of Wynn is on the shelf and forced there by circumstance, wealth, like the lack of wealth, the fact that she had to take a job, the fact that she lost access to the aristocracy, the fact that she is not attractive, right? Like all these things kind of layer in and make her a blue stocking on the shelf. Despite the fact that she has a very rich, and she's a perfect example of like what I was trying to get at with, which is she lives alone. She doesn't have the other thing about this is like putting a character on the shelf really loosens up the responsibility of having a chaperone.
Yes, that's
right?
True.
Like I will say, and I think I've said this on an earlier episode, God knows when, but you know, when you write characters who are like virgins or young women of means in historicals, an editor, any decent editor is going to say to you like, hey, why is she running around alone? Like, doesn't she have a chaperone? Right. But like, if she's older, you can sort of
wave that away. Right.
She's dusty. Nobody wants her. right. And so I think like Wynn from The Proposition is a good example of like somebody who has like access to the world if only she would take it. But like is like really buttoned up because she's been raised in a society that tells her that like women don't do.
You know, the other kind of on the shelf that I think like the Bridgertons really traffic in, and in particular, I would say Anthony's book and then Penelope's book, right, is like, and it's like they're different, but it's like on the shelf because your family moved on to a like more like your sibling was a better prospect. And there was only so much energy to like get like to, you know what I mean, to like move someone forward onto the marriage mart. Now that's not really true of Penelope because she's, you know, just like her mom, where, you know, picks these horrible dresses and are, you know what I mean? Like she just is like, you know, it's always like the wrong thing. Her mom's too thirsty for it. And Penelope is really shy. And it's just like a horrible mismatch between like who she is as a person and then her mother's pressure. But in the second book, which is it The Viscount Who Loved Me? I'm like, I know words. You know, I always really loved the fact that Kate was like essentially, you know, her father had remarried and she has a younger sister who is just like a diamond of the first water, right? And therefore, Kate is just like, well, of course, we're all going to get behind, I can't remember her name, right? Getting her married. And it's very freeing in some ways for Kate, right? But like she doesn't even really think that she's like, she just sort of is like, why would anybody even look at me if my sister Edwina is around, right? She does this really truly without like jealousy or rancor and I think that it really, to me, felt like it played against type because sometimes the like beautiful older sibling or, you know, the beautiful sister or whatever is terrible, is mean, and, you know, treats the, you know, the other one. I mean, I think that Callie also has a kind sibling, right? The one who, you know, her sister is totally great and wonderful and loves Callie and had no problem catching herself a man. And I think that I really like the idea that like for some of these women and these characters, I mean, for Kate, it was kind of like, well, it's somehow not my turn. I've decided that everyone has decided that this is her year. It's not mine. Right. And I think that there's something interesting about the ones who sort of like put themselves on the shelf maybe a little bit or agree to get up on the shelf out of a sense of self-sacrifice.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by 1001 Dark Nights, publishers of the Sparks and Surrender Enemies to Lovers romance collection.
Sparks and Surrender is the perfect title for an Enemies to Lovers collection because that is what a good Enemies to Lovers story should deliver to you, right? So sparks fly. These people are enemies, they're bitter rivals. They can't stand each other. It's like being in the middle of a burning house, right? How could anyone ever think that this is love? Well, because that burning house does not hate everyone, right? And so what we've got are these really fiery romances where people start off as enemies and then, of course, become lovers. So we have novellas in this collection by Laura Wright and Alexandra Ivy, Elizabeth Naughton, Jill Shalvis, and Rachel Van Dyken. Heavy hitters who are going to deliver the perfect enemies to lovers romance to you.
If you love enemies to lovers romances and you want to read this collection, which I'm sure you do, you can do that right now in print, ebook, or with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now and be taken to buy the book. Thanks so much to 1001 Dark Nights and all the authors for sponsoring this week's episode. The other thing that we have to talk about is this blue stocking piece, right? Which is... We've done a blue stocking episode. We did it a while back. But like the way there is something that these books are saying, blue stocking books are saying something very particular about like intellectual pursuit in the mind of a woman. And again, I think this is, I mean, like, we don't have to get into it because you all understand what I'm about to say intuitively, but there is, the books are saying something about the world, right? Like women who think are dangerous and unwanted in these books. And so because they think, they are then shelved.
Yeah.
And then they find somebody who sees them and their brain and their brilliance for all that it is worth. And so I think like the blue stocking also lives in this world. So it sounds to me like we've got like blue stockings on the shelf. We've got like older characters who get up there. We've got characters who choose it, right? Then there's like feminists.
Yes, right.
Right, like second wave feminists.
I feel like that's like Jessica Trent. It's kind of like,
well, Jessica Trent's like a real deal feminist, but like I'm talking about like women shouldn't have to marry. I read Wollstonecraft, right? Like that kind of feminist. So it's like spinster slash, on the shelf by choice because of society, or because of society slash age. And then because of society slash
yes,
smart.
Right. Like listen, can't do both. Can't be smart and be married. Sorry.
So, all right, let's get into it.
Okay.
So I'm going to start. I'm going to start with the lowest hanging fruit. The one that everybody is going, these two idiots better talk about Spindle Cove.
I mean, even this idiot was like, there's the vibes behind my sails. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, sure, obviously.
This is Tessa Dare arguably at her very finest.
Absolutely.
Like, there is so much. I reread the first half of A Night to Surrender this morning.
I bet you fell right into it.
Man, like, I'm sad I can't go back to it, right? Like, that book slaps. It is Tessa Dare she is really honestly at her finest there. And I know, people are going to fight me about this, but you're wrong. Like, it is so pure Tessa. It begins, okay. Spindle Cove, for those of you who don't know, is charmingly like referred to in this book, in this series, as Spinster Cove, because it is a town at the sea in the south of England where like families send their single unmarried daughters to take the air.
I would like to go there. It seems so nice.
You're not allowed.
Yes,
Jen.
Why not?
Because you have Mr. Reed's romance.
Fine. He would send me though. He'd be like, "Go take in some air. You're too much."
He needs a passport, a special kind of passport.
Like, remember how I said like Eric wouldn't be let into the the bar that was, if you don't believe in Sephora, it won't let you in.
Exactly.
That's how Spindle Cove is.
Exactly. Okay. So, but here's the deal. So in A Night to Surrender, this is the first in the Spindle Cove series. And listen, I fucking love a first in a series because it just it tees it all up. It's a freaking delight. You can see all the future books all lined up. This is textbook historical. Yeah. Like, there's so nothing about this book that doesn't hit exactly as you expect it to hit. It's like it was designed in a lab to make Regency readers salivate. So the beginning, but then it has so much Tessa laid into it. So the beginning of this book, there are a bunch of soldiers returned from war. Or I don't actually know why all these soldiers are standing around on a road in England. It doesn't matter.
Probably
but they're
pheromones.
all there, and they're trying to get through to see. Actually, I do know they're trying to get to a castle nearby or a house nearby to have a conversation with somebody, and they are being stopped by a herd of sheep. Sheep who, this is here, Tessa Dare, right? There's an animal, boom, animal, right at the very beginning, right? These sheep are cantankerous and are not interested in the fact that these are warriors who are noble and returned home from war. And so Bram, our hero, is he has vanquished the French, he has vanquished Napoleon, and he will not be flummoxed by this herd of sheep. But instead, so he decides all right, load up the cannons. We've got a bunch of black powder. We don't have to shoot a cannon at these things, but let's explode the cannon and not hurt them, not shoot a cannonball, but the sound will startle them into running off the road. And so they're like, okay, there's like, so it begins with like a bunch of dingbat men like trying to figure out how to get sheep out of a road. And they're like, I know, weaponry. So then it cuts to Spindle Cove, which is quiet and idyllic and perfect because no men live there. And Susanna Finch, our heroine, is like the like mayor of the town. Like I don't think that's her actual like title, but she's like basically like everybody's sort of appointed her. She's very competent. She's an apothecary. So like we meet her with like a young woman being delivered by her family to Spindle Cove, who's like, and her mother is like, where's the closest surgeon because she needs to be bloodlet whenever she has an episode. Yeah. And Susanna's like, the surgeon's in the nearest town. Your daughter's going to be safe. But like in her head, she's like, fuck you, get out. I'm going to take care of your daughter. Right? She's like doctor, protector. She's a great marksman. But she is an avowed spinster because Spindle Cove, like she runs this town. She is lead spinster in this town.
She's the chief spinster.
Now, also, chapter fucking 2. And then, like, as she's talking about this, she's like, it's so idyllic, so quiet. Her nerves will be very calm here. And then, kaboom! Like, the land is shaking because Bram and his idiots are trying to blow up a bunch of sheep, right? And it's very delightful. It's written in that, like, rat-a-tat way that Tessa writes. It's really just a delight to read. Now, the men show up in chapter 2. Like,
of course.
I mean, like, this book moves at a clip. And in classic Tessa form, Bram sets eyes on Susanna, who is like a tall, redheaded, like bigger woman. And he's like, I fucking love her. Like,
yeah.
Boom, gone. And this is a Tessa Dare. If you love a hero who falls first and hard, Tessa Dare is for you. And so they kiss in chapter 2, Jen. And then they stop kissing.
See, back in the good old days, gosh.
Oh my God.
Get to kissing.
He just like lays, like she helps him. He's like bleeding. She helps, like she heals his like shoulder or whatever. And then he's like, it's nothing. It's nothing a little kiss won't fix. And then he just lays one on her. And it's great for both of them. And she's like, no, but I'm a spinster. Like, he's a man. Yuck. But also like, yum. And then there's this great moment, and it's so perfectly Tessa Dare coded, where the heroine looks at the hero and says, this poor soldier was addled by war. Like, it's the only answer, because no sane man had ever looked at her like that. Like, because he wants her so fucking bad.
It's perfect.
And it's great. This is your summer series, you guys. You're going to get these summer storms, and you're going to get Spindle Cove, and you're going to have a great time.
Yeah. If you haven't read those, they really are. I mean, they are terrific. They really are.
Really a very fun series. And then you have a full, you have whatever, 4 or 5 books in the series.
I am going to talk about An Earl Like You by Caroline Linden. This is a book I really loved, and I think there's like a lot of reasons for it. And one of the reasons is everybody knows that like one of my favorite things is like heroine against the wall, but in this one it's hero against the wall. Mm-hmm. And what it is Hugh Devereux essentially inherits the earldom, right? And I think the thing that's like really great about this is he really had no idea just what a like idiot his father was when it came to money stuff. So it's like one of those things where sometimes these men inherit the earldom and they know that it's just like, right, like like an albatross around their neck. They know that it's going to be terrible because there's no money. But Hugh, I think, really did not know. And so he... this is the part I also love. He's like, well, I guess I got to raise a bunch of money to fix this. And so he does what any gentleman would do, which is basically just like gambles, like as a job, because you can't have a job. You're right. Your job is Earl. Your job is not
your job is Earl. Yeah. Your job is title.
Your job is your title. And so he spends, and my memory is that it's like a couple of years essentially just like gambling every night to basically do everything he can to get the earldom back to being at least a little bit solvent.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is at this point, and this, I also really love this, a wealthy merchant buys up the remaining debt. And I think, like, if I remember correctly, too, it's like, you know, just when he kind of felt like there was a light at the end of the tunnel and I was going to get out of this, whatever, buys up the remaining debt and says, if you can convince my daughter to marry you,
Mm-hmm.
right, we will consider it. We'll consider it even. You know, I'm not going to force her to marry you. I'm not buying you. I'm not buying
Wait,
her
so does she know?
She doesn't know. And the deal
That's
yeah,
the money.
Yeah, the deal
that's
is
the money.
You can never tell her.
She can never know.
She can never know. So Eliza is the heroine, right? And basically what she thinks is, this is my father's handsome new business partner, the Earl of Hastings. And, you know, he's such a gentleman and he, you know, he is so, like, look at his nice manners, look at the cut of his suit and like all that stuff, right? And so, and he seems to really be into her. And so, of course, she, you know, falls in love and agrees to marry him. The whole time he is not telling her the truth. Now, part of the other shocking reason I think that this book really, I love this book so much is I typically really do not enjoy books like this where, like, the setup is lying, right? Like, he's lying to her. But I think the reason it works is they're both in the trap, right? Her father is the one who, like, laid the trap. And so he really has no choice but to sort of, like, right? Like, to court her. And of course, what does he do but fall in love with her?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think it was just like a really great read for me. You know, I went back for this one and I looked at my Goodreads review, which a lot of them are not still up. But one of the other things about this book is this would be a great, like, if you are a person who's like, I've never really read historical, it seems too overwhelming. There's all this, you know, what the hell is a reticule or whatever, right? Then this is a really good, like, starter romance because it really introduces, there's a lot of talk about, like, well, what properties are entailed and her dowry and the aristocracy and, you know, whatever the rules are of society that he knows that she doesn't because she's just a merchant's daughter. And right. And so I also, if you're a person who's like, I am not sure I would like, you know, a historical romance, where do I begin? It feels a little overwhelming. This would be a really great romance for you. So I really loved this book a lot. It's An Earl Like You by Caroline Linden.
Caroline is great. Another one who, like, listen, basically we're giving you a lot of people who, like, if you've never read them, you're going to have a great time this summer. This is where we are now. Jen is coming up at the end of her thing. I'm writing. We're just going to fill your summer reading lists. This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Avon Books, publishers of Ava Ronnie's The Charmer.
Sarah, is there anything better than people trying to outwit an inheritance scheme in a romance novel?
No, there is not, because that's just destiny.
So we've got Penelope Chen Astor. She grew up in a very wealthy family in Singapore, but she did not want to live with the kind of stifling expectations that they put on her. So she took off and became a high-powered Manhattan lawyer. But when her grandfather dies, familial duty comes crashing down on her life in a big, bad way. And the deal is that she's supposed to marry to claim her inheritance, but she doesn't care about that. She is a high-powered Manhattan lawyer. She doesn't need his money. But grandfather did something terrible and clever, which is he tied up her mother's assets into it too. And so the only way Penelope can protect her mother is by finding someone to marry. Luckily for her, there's a billionaire hanging around. This is Xander Sutton. He is co-founder of an investment group and super charming, but Penelope's always been immune to his charms. But when she's backed into a corner, he sees the opportunity to masquerade as her husband and win her over.
All right.
what's going to happen when that year comes to an end.
Oh, I bet I can tell you. If you want to read all about this billionaire who needs a fake marriage, then you can read The Charmer right now in print, ebook, or audiobook. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Ava Ronnie and Avon Books for sponsoring this week's episode. Okay, so here's the deal. Spindle Cove happened, but before Spindle Cove, there was Elizabeth Boyle's Rhymes with Love series. And I don't think we've talked about Elizabeth on the podcast before. But this series is like 6 or 7 books, and they're all interconnected, and they're all related to, they're all like kind of loose retellings of like nursery rhymes. Like, you know, so this one is called Along Came a Duke. And the premise here is that Tabitha has elected to sit on the shelf. Okay. And she lives in a small town that is called, I think, Kempton. But the idea behind Kempton is not that the women there choose to be spinsters. It is that they are cursed to be spinsters. Like, whoa. No one from this it's not a town even, it's like a tiny little village. No one in this village like survives the Kempton curse. Like, even if somebody does marry, they die. Like the something like either like the husband disappears or like dies or something happens. Like, they definitely do not marry for love. And so this is, you know, fully cursed. So here's the thing. So Tabitha lives with her aunt and uncle in Kempton, and she is very happy to be up on the shelf. She knows that there is sort of like, there's family money. There's no sort of urgency to marry in this case, but there isn't, like, she's still a woman, and she doesn't have like her parents are dead. And at the beginning of the book, she is like in town, or she like heads to the village, and she goes to the blacksmith for some reason. Like, she has reason to go to the blacksmith, and she gets in there, and there is this like absolute fucking rogue of a man holding a bellows, like working the forge, if you will. This is an actual forge. He works a different forge later, but he's working the forge, and he's like not wearing a shirt. Like, his shirt is open, and she can see his like dirty pecs. And she's like, no man would ever, no reasonable, respectable man would ever. And he's basically like, honey, do you like what you see? And he's like look, long story short, extremely hot. She gives him a kind of real piece of her mind. She's like, how dare? and as she's kind of like reading him the riot act for the way that he is like being inappropriately, like leering inappropriately at her, you know, her friends or like the people who are around are kind of trying to like get her attention and like calm her down. And she's like, no, I will not be calmed down by this. Like, you know, look at this brute of a man. Then she goes home and only to discover that a distant uncle, has died and left her a massive estate. Like, she is wealthy beyond reason now, except we know how this goes, right? This is romance law. Except she has to marry before she turns 25 in order to collect it. And she's like, I'm turning 25 in less than a month. Like, where am I going to find a man? I live in Kempton. Like, the town is cursed. Sure. And she gets told, oh, like, don't worry about it. Your uncle has actually like provided you with a husband. He selected a husband for you. And what's interesting about this is, so he selected a husband for her, and she's like, I guess, okay, fine. But the problem is that husband is like a very square, very proper husband that's in town named, I think his name is Reginald. Like, you know, our name is Destiny. And the Duke, and and she's met this like rapscallion scoundrel ne'er-do-well at the forge, who Jen just happens to be a duke.
Of course, obviously.
So here we go. So now we have Preston, who also is now like, ooh, who's that hottie who like, I love getting a woman enraged. You know, all these heroes also just love it. They love it when you're pissed at them.
Oh, of course.
They think it's adorable. And so, like, basically this story is Tabitha and Preston, like Tabitha kind of like coming to terms with the fact that like Preston is, so that, you know, it goes on a little bit longer. Like nobody tells her that he's a duke. And then she figures it out, but she can't stand him. And like, and then there's the curse of the town. And then there's Reginald looming in town. And is she going to, you know, what's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
What will happen?
Amazing. Okay.
Listen, I love any man who knows his way around a blacksmith shop.
Well, obviously. Okay. So I'm going to talk about One for the Rogue by Manda Collins. Manda writes a really great historical romance, and these are also really fun. I think some of her more recent ones are even more like mystery heavy, but this is an older one that also has like a mystery at the heart of it. And One for the Rogue is the last book in the Studies in Scandal novel. And the scandal of this is I'm about to talk about fossils, but I'm going to keep it brief. Don't worry. In this book, the setup of the series is that there was a woman named Lady Celeste who died, and then in her will essentially left money for essentially creates almost like a artist in residence, but it's like blue stockings in residence. And so each book has one of these young ladies who essentially gets to spend a year like pursuing her scientific interests without worrying about, right, like family, which should so easily cut women off from these pursuits, right? And so I think one is, you know, a mathematician and one's an artist. And in this one, Gemma is a geologist, and the hero's name is Cam. And so, you know, as a blue stocking, you're basically on the shelf, but like kind of by choice, right? Like, but she's just like, look, no man could compare to, right, my fossils. No bone could compare to these bones. Sorry, I had to do it. Okay, I've been saying that joke for 500 years. All right, anyway. So what happens is she is, I don't know, just like out on a walkabout. And this felt very much like a throwback to me to like old Amanda Quick books, because she sees like essentially some, I think it's like a lantern, or maybe it's like someone pulling a boat up onto the shore or whatever. And she realizes that there is like something afoot on the estate, like, right, like something is happening. And so she goes out to like sort of see, you know, like what it is that's happening, and runs into Lord Cameron Lyle. And Cameron is also, I believe, a geologist. And if he is essentially, and listen, I hope this man I hope he suffers forever, which is, he is like a fossil hunter. And she has tried very hard to get him to publish like one of her papers in his, you know, little, like in, you know, with his organization or whatever, like Boring Fossil Hunters in England, TM. And so he is just like, you know, just doesn't take her seriously because she's a woman. And so what happens is, on this like hunt for like kind of like what is going on with the, you know, are there smugglers or whatever was the strange light, they find essentially a really, you know, amazing fossil. I didn't pay attention to this. I have no idea if it was
fossils.
I didn't pay attention to the fossils part of it, but they essentially now are in danger together. So like the mystery is kind of like trying to figure it out, right? Like who was in these cliffs and like what's going on. And then there's also like a dead body, like a murder. So they have to like solve the murder, and they're going to fall in love. And the other part about this is there is like the kind of on the shelf part is, you know, she's happy to be on the shelf. Like, again, she cares more about fossils those bones, right? And so they get caught, I believe, like somebody sees them kissing. And
Nice.
right. And now it's like, now they're right. What are we going to do? Like, and of course he's like, there is real enemies to lovers. Like, I would never have anything to do with her. And yet they have found, this, they're in a compromising position. So they're going to pretend to get married and go and try and essentially solve the murder and figure out what's going on. And I really think that this, it's just a really charming romance. I think, again, it feels like a real classic kind of romance, but like with the twist and addition of the murder mystery. And also just like, I really love when they are like truly at odds. Like, this man has refused to publish her work because he's a man and she isn't. And, her like sort of proving to him what a great scientist she is great. So that's One for the Rogue by Amanda Collins.
I love it. So I want to talk about Madeline Hunter, because I've been thinking a lot about Madeline Hunter for the last couple of weeks, because she passed away in April. And I'm sorry if this is the first you're hearing of it and you, like I, thought Madeline was really great. I want to just say, I'm going to eulogize her for just a moment, because I think she is really vital. She had a really vital role at a very particular time in romance where nobody was funding or researching romance, and Madeline was the chair of the RWA academic committee that was one of the only places where researchers and academics could get funding for their research around romance. And so Madeline really spearheaded that committee. She was really vital to making sure that at a time when nobody was thinking about romance, like academics who were interested in it had a little bit of funding in order to do their research. She was also a great writer. She wrote, she had written for many, many years. When I met her, she was incredibly kind and really welcoming. I was, 12 and a half years old. I had written my first romance novel, and I had read all of hers, and she was great. She was a professor and a writer. And I am sorry that I didn't keep in touch with her as she aged, as we aged. But I heard a couple of weeks ago that she passed away, and this is me saying I'm really sorry to her friends, her family, and her devoted readers, of which some of you probably are. That said, she wrote a book called His Wicked Reputation that I immediately thought of today when I was like, oh, we've never talked about Madeline. And here is a perfect example of an absolute, perfectly precise heroine who has a plan for her life that does not involve marriage. She is older. She is, she doesn't have much money. She has it actually sort of has that sort of vibe of the proposition in terms of Wynn being able to somehow retain an amount of reputation by virtue of being descended from a good family line. But Eva, the heroine, she copies paintings. And this is perfect example. Madeline was a historian. Her books are really full of these really unique things that of course, there are famous paintings at this time, but you can't print them. There's no color print. And so talented artists would copy it wasn't the Mona Lisa because that wasn't famous then, but they would see a Da Vinci and then they would copy the Da Vinci so you could hang a copy of it in your house. So her sort of goal is to amass enough money in order to marry her sister off, in a decent marriage. And then kind of cross your fingers, maybe then I'll be okay too. Right. So in comes Gareth Fitzallen, who is pure, again, unadulterated rake, but he is headed to, he is a like sort of he's like connected to the aristocracy. He's extremely handsome. Sort of all of Madeline's heroes are sort of legendary pleasure givers, which is terrific work, everyone. But of course, like, he would never touch a virgin. But he's sort of turned up because there has been an enormous art theft. And like, he's trying to get to the bottom of like what's going on with this art theft. And he decides that he's going to seduce Eva. And in order to like gain access to her like skill and her talents. The issue at this point is that the whole town is like, oh, Eva, you better watch out, because he'll seduce your sister and then she'll be ruined, right? Except he doesn't want the sister at all. He's like aiming hard for Eva. And this is a great example of one of those heroines who like knows the score, but like the moment a handsome man gets his hands on her, she is like addled. Like, she just goes like, she's confused. She's like, I feel feelings all of a sudden. And like, this man, as Tessa Dare's heroine said, no sane man has ever looked at me this way. Right?
Right.
And so it's like really, really charming. It's Madeline loves a plot. Like, this is fast moving. There is this like kind of art mystery right through the middle of it. It's all twisty and turny. Gareth is a bastard who's like a bastard son, and there are like a bunch of half brothers who then pop up in other, like, again, Madeline knew the job. She knew that like you were going to come into a book and then want to know like the whole world that was in here. And basically you've got these characters, like you've got these characters kind of like really trying to understand like who they are in the, you know, I think the thing that we didn't talk about at the beginning of this was the other kind of value of this like on the shelf piece is being able to kind of unpack the rake, because often it is this character, right? Like rarely is somebody on the shelf, except for in Mary Beleg's books, like rarely is someone on the shelf matched with like somebody who's like has like a lovely, decent reputation. Like often it's like, here's a scoundrel arrive to have his entire world upended by this like mysteriously magical woman on the shelf. And that's what goes on here. Like Gareth has this like what he shows the world and then what Eva brings out of him. And it's really beautiful.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Stephanie Rose, author of A Whole New Ballgame.
Our heroine, Rachel, has her hands full. She is working a pretty demanding job at a PR firm. She is responsible for raising her teenage sister, and the only time she has for romance in any form is the hours she carves out in the evenings writing steamy romance novels. And then because of, you know, romance reasons, she ends up in a meet cute with Silas Jones, a recently retired baseball legend who's now a manager. And he's gorgeous, all right. And he's obviously very famous and well put together. But the reality is, Silas has a lot of regret and a lot of baggage that he's going to have to unpack. Of course, we love that, right?
I love it.
One magical night between the two of them gives Rachel, you know, the chance to forget everything that's going on in her real life. It fills the well for the romance novels. And then, boom, fate throws her a curveball and brings them together again through work. And Silas is sort of in it to win it at this point, except there is a strict no fraternization clause in Rachel's contract. But we all know that if you put a baseball player and a PR person on page, there's going to be fraternization. Come on now.
I mean, it's inevitable. I do too. So listen, balls are flying everywhere and you want to check them out in A Whole New Ballgame. It is available in print and with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Stephanie Rose for sponsoring this week's episode. Okay, I'm going to talk really quickly about the Wallflowers versus Rogue series by Lenora Bell. And if you, again, Lenora Bell is to me just, I don't know,
great.
they're great. Like they are just
really fun.
Yes, like a good time, right? Like this is, just like they're really like the dialogue's really snappy, the plots really move, right? Like these are really often really fun characters. And in this one, the three heroines of the books essentially decide to like form a secret society, and they're all wallflowers. And they're like, it's not for us to get married. I'm just like, we're over it, right? We have our own goals, whatever they are. And in the first one, Beatrice Bentley is the heroine, and she has like a palsy. Like when she was born, there was something went wrong, and so she, has like a little bit of paralysis in her face, and it just means that like her mother right, like she's just like a little on the outs. Like she's not perfect. She's not perfect and beautiful and everything else, and so she, meanwhile, is like, great, good for me, because I have my own plans, which is she's working on like writing her own dictionary.
Amazing.
Yeah,
this is Blue Stocking, right?
Right.
Blue Stocking Circle.
Yeah, exactly. And so she is out at her like brother's mansion, and she's going to like stay there and work on her, her dictionary, because she doesn't have to deal with, being in the ballroom. She's on the shelf and she likes it there. That's where the books are, right? She is a total bookworm.
Well, and she doesn't have to show herself to the world, right?
Exactly.
Like she doesn't reveal anything about herself. Not physically. The shelf is really safe.
Yes, exactly. I think that's why this is like such a good one for this. I mean, the whole series obviously is Wallflowers versus Rogues, but this one is
it's Lenora.
It's Lenora, right? But in this one, the hero it's a real like class difference book. His name is Ford, and I think he's in the Navy, but he is essentially at her brother's mansion, like essentially doing renovations. And so they are constantly like sort of running into each other. And she's like, there's a whole like shtick in this book where she's always like calling him names because, right, like from her like dictionary or whatever, like just like really going over the top. And, she just wants to like kind of be left alone. And yet here is this like kind of beautiful man banging a hammer around, and they seem to just like be drawn to each other like magnets. And so I think this is like a really great one for just how she has like bought into the idea that there is like something shameful about her because of this imperfection, and that she just, Ford just sees her for who she really is, and she can see beyond the class differences between them and see that he is like a great person and that they're a great match. So that's Love is a Rogue by Lenora Bell.
I forgot to say when I was talking about Madeline that I found a piece that she wrote for USA Today about Spinsters, which we will link in show notes, everybody. But as part of it, she interviewed a bunch of other writers who also wrote books about spinsters, like right around that time. Do you remember when USA Today was doing that? Like
those were good old days.
Yeah, it was awesome. And in it, she references a different book, which I read last night and had a great time with. So she will also recommend it in this article, but I'm going to talk about it now. And that is Michelle Stiles's Taming His Viking Woman.
Ooh, I like it.
This is a different kind of on the shelf. And I was looking, like I said, I was like, what does it look like in contemporary? Like, how does it look in other ways? And this one kind of like lives outside of the Venn diagram that I described, because the heroine of this book, Sarid, is a shield maiden.
Sure.
A Viking shield maiden. And the rule with Viking shield maidens is that they are devoted to the Valkyrie. They are like Valkyries, devoted to a goddess, right? The goddess of war. And they cannot be married unless a warrior, I'm so delighted by this, a Viking warrior defeats them in battle.
Oh, I love it.
You should just download it and read it right now. You're going to have a great time. So, okay, here's the deal. So we begin, like, we meet Sarah, like, she's fishing for trout. Like she's like staring down a trout, Testadair style, right? Like she reaches into the water. She's like trying to fish this trout with her bare hands because she's a shield maiden and she can. And her idiot brother like comes running to the lake, is basically like, I got a problem. We need somebody to help. You're the only one who's competent in this family. And he's like, I was supposed to marry this other woman and she is getting married to somebody else. And Sarah's very practical and is basically like, well, who cares? Because the money, the dowry was like guaranteed back like months ago. So we still get the money. So whatever, go find another lady. And he's like, no, but I love her. And she's like, love. I'm a shield maiden. I don't have time for that. And he's like, no, but like, I really do love her. And also I'm pretty sure she's like, she loves me and she doesn't want to marry this guy, this like Viking warrior king, Rolf, with an H, everybody. Rolf with an H. So, and she's like, oh, fuck. And because like all of a sudden now, if like she's being forced to marry this woman, then Sarah has to get involved, right? Like sisterhood. So off she goes to the longhouse. I'm making this up. I don't even know if it's a longhouse, but you know what everybody's with me. You all know, men in fur. Off she goes to the longhouse where Rolf has been like welcomed by like the family of this woman who her brother is supposed to marry. And we cut to his POV and he's like looking at the place and he's like, well, why has nobody introduced me to this woman, this bride I'm supposed to take? Like, and they're like, oh, she's busy. She's like in the barn. She's in the whatever. And he's like, what the fuck is wrong with this woman? Like, why won't anybody introduce me to it? And it's obviously because like this woman is like just a blubbering mess. She doesn't want to marry Rolf. Listen, everybody should want to marry Rolf. I'm just like telling everybody. So anyway, in comes Sarah, and she's basically like, hey, fuckwit, you can't just come and marry people who don't want to marry you. And he's like, well, I was told she did want to marry me. And she's like, well, guess what? She doesn't, and I don't want to marry you either. Who would want to marry you? Men. And he's like, oh my God, I love her. So
perfect.
So basically he's like, how do I get her? And everybody's like, you can't just, he starts to call her Valkyrie, which, I mean, my beating heart.
Right there, boom.
Right? He's like, how do I get her? His like second in command is like, holy shit, she's tall. Like, it's a whole thing. He's like, I want her. Like, she's the one I want to marry. And everybody's like, you can't marry her. She's a shield maiden. Like, and he's like, so? And they're like, you have to defeat her in battle. And he's like, are you telling me like no man has ever tried? Because he can't fathom the idea that she might win, right? And they're like, literally no one has ever tried because they all know she'll kick the shit out of them. And he's like, not me. And it's the greatest.
That is amazing.
I had the best time. Like, because obviously he does, like, then all of a sudden he does get her. He wins her land, her body, her, like, mind, her
everything,
soul, but not her heart. Not her heart, Jen. And then it's like, well, fuck. What is going to happen? Because he's, like, taken her whole identity. It's great. It's a really fun read. Harlequin Historical is a bop.
A bop.
A bop. It's 200 pages of like pure
joy. Yeah.
Men in fur.
Men in fur. All right. I feel, Sarah, I know you say it, but I feel we've done the job.
We have. I think we have. I have others on my list, but like, I think we're good. I'll save them for next time.
Okay.
Everybody, I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop, and we are Fated Mates. Come and see us live in person in St. Louis on July 8th. Go to fatedmates.net/live to get tickets. And if you can't see us in St. Louis, but you can see me and sometimes us in other places, head over there. That will also take you to all of the information on my book tour, which is in July. I would love to see you. I will have Fated Mates gear with me. I will have stickers and other things maybe. We are so excited to see you there. Tell us about your favorite spinsters in historicals. Anybody on the shelf, we want to hear about it. And in the meantime, head to fatedmates.net where you can find show notes. Check everything in show notes. Be sure to read that piece from Madeline Hunter and all the other stuff about Madeline that we put in show notes. And then what else? You can find us on Blue Sky, on Threads, on Instagram, at fatedmates.net. You can find all the collections that we're building with our friends or that our friends are building for
With
us. Exactly. And that's it.
Listen, be right back. Moving to Spinster Cove. Spindle Cove.
Hope you don't get cursed in that small town full of ladies.
Sure. I mean, it's all going to work out for everyone.
What kind of curse could it really be? Cursed to never marry? What's that?
Come on. Miss me with that. It's no kind of threat. All right, everybody. Have a great week. We love you.
Bye.